So, hey guys, thanks a lot for being here. I mean, it's such a pleasure to be here, actually, and to have the opportunity to share my actual project, my current project with you. And actually, as you're going to see at the end of the project, is a sort of work in progress project, particularly the second part of the project. So I would be super grateful to have your feedback. So my presentation, Tracing Female Imaginaries of the 19th Century with Digital Method, it's sort of attached to a particular context, which is the end of the 19th century in Spain. So it is widely acknowledged in scholarly literature on late 19th century Spain that the woman became one of the most, debated topics in the national socio-political and cultural landscape, not only in Spain, but I'm focusing on that corpus and on that context right now. So emerging debates on feminism and women's rights, the abundance of medical and philosophical treatises on female psychology and biology, and the centrality of women's representation in art and literature made discussions on the condition and nature of women a dominant cultural trend at that time. And those shifting feminine roles can be particularly traced in periodicals, not only because newspapers and magazines provide a unique synchronic glimpse into a specific time and space, but also due to the scarcity of feminist-oriented books in Spain at that time. While social transformation and shifting gender norms encourage, in that case, diverse and multiple feminine imaginaries, ranging from, for example, the fatal woman or witches and eroticized women, but also the donna, what has been called the donna angelicata and the angel of the house, for example, to, once again, traditional representation of wives and mothers. Occasionally, but the majority of the time, during or through sort of parodic lenses, women were even depicted as emancipated and masculinized objects or subjects, and the fin de siècle, I mean the end of the 19th century cultural magazine, provide a sort of glimpse, a sort of overview of the different representation of women by that time. Particularly, I'm focused on the interrelationship, the influence of the different biological and medical theories by that time, and how they sort of influence the cultural literary context. So medical discourses attempted to regulate emerging social freedoms, interpreting them as signs of societal decline, and women who transgress traditional roles as mothers, daughters, and wife were often treated as clinical cases. Together with the well-known hysteria that you probably are familiar with, several other diagnoses were used to pathologize women or non-conforming women, including neurasthenia, subjectivity, etc. There were like a lot of names by that time. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm still exploring the female representation, the female imaginaries in three late 19th century Spanish magazines. They are, I'm just translating for you, the Literary Life, the New Life, and the Gallant Life. And I'm going to do it so on one hand, doing a sort of topic modeling that I'm going to show you right now as a sort of exploratory experiment. And in the second part of my presentation, I'm going to show you what I'm working right now, which is a sort of LLM work in progress with the interpretation, with the contextual interpretation of the use of some medical terms by that time. So my corpus right now is the 48 issues of those three magazines. All of them were available at the National Library in Spain, so I was able to download them in PDF format, but even though they sort of have like a sort of OCR applied to the corpus, I needed to process them, so I was using basically Avian Fine Reader, and then I was cleaning up that corpus manually. So after that, I just standardized the corpus, as you're seeing on the right, following that scheme. I mean, always putting like an underscore in front of the title, and an underscore in front and after the author, and just directly above that, the body of the text. So when I have that, I was able to extract to the different segment, which were the different texts, and I'm calling them texts because they are from different kinds. I mean, I'm talking about short stories, I'm talking about poems, I'm talking about like political, social reflections about a time, and also about literary texts and essays in general. So I was able to obtain all those texts, and that allows me to have, on one hand, to build two different data sheets. The first one encompassing all the titles, all the author, etc., from all the magazine, from all the issues. And on the second hand, I was able to build like a second data sheet with some biographical information from the authors, the gender of the author, the country of origin, the birthday, etc. And I also documented that every time when the author exists in some of those sources. And that, I mean, for this particular presentation, what could be interested is the last visualization in which you can be the gender distribution of authors across the three magazines. And as you can see, there are officially only 4 women publishing in all the magazines. Of course, we know that female authorship could be hidden in the anonymous publication. They could also publish under surnames, under their husband's name, etc. But officially, only there were 3 or 4 women publishing in those magazines. So what I did as this first step was applying a sort of topic modeling across all the texts I got. I knew for sure, because I was particularly interested in tracing those biological medical influence, I knew for sure that I wasn't going to find like any maybe not so relevant or remarkable, but I was interested in have that sort of overview, sort of survey about the main theme across the magazines. And what is interesting for my topic right now is that on one hand, topic 1 was absolutely focused on women representation, actually. And as you can see, I just provide like a sort of informal translation for you. As you can see there in topic number 1, you sort of are seeing like a sort of set of the main role play, the main traditional role play by women by that time. So they were basically women, mother, daughters, etc. And it's very interesting how, however, sometimes they are also intertwined when it comes to eroticized women and how they were related to male desire. And that was also very interesting because even though that women representation was determined by the division based in the masculine, I mean from the male perspective in that case. And when it comes to topic 2, which was clearly focused on male viewpoint and this sort of celebration of the nightlife, it's even more interesting how women are once again represented there at some level, but they are more close to sexual, erotic connotation in that case. More interesting, however, was, topic 6 also deal with some female representation, basically portraying a sort of idealized, despersonalized vision of women associated with nature. But topic 7, which was the most interesting one, on one hand tried to represent women associated with the idea of illness. I mean, if you're seeing here, they are on one hand, women once again related to the representation of pleasure and male attraction, but on the other hand, there are a lot of like semantic framework related to death, blindness, illness, madness, etc., which is a sort of glimpse into how women were pathologized by that time. So having that, and that's the second part of the project, which is once again absolutely a work in progress. Once I had that overview, I wanted to go deep into the possible connections between the medical terminology by that time and how women were represented. So I basically work with a corpus of 17 medical documents. They are sort of manual, treatise, sometimes conference paper that I was able to download once again from the National Library in Spain. And I sort of extracted the main 1,000 words of every one of those. Fine, thank you. The main 1,000 words from every one of those medical documents. And at the end, that allowed me to create a sort of unified list with all the terms. So I was using two metrics, two parameters. On one hand, more like frequency. I mean, which words are more often across all of the documents. And on the other hand, I was using that metric, the TF-IDF, which is basically a sort of balance between which words are more common and which words are more relevant. I mean, which words are more central to a particular document or text. So having that, I sort of train a model, which is, once again, it's still a work in progress, but I was able to train a model trying to recognize all those words, all those medical, biological terms in every one of my texts, as you are seeing here, because I also highlighted them for what I'm going to explain next. So as you can see, I mean, I'm still working on that because, of course, there are a lot of challenge when it comes to, on one hand, training a model using those words. I basically lemmatized them in the majority of the case, but even though there are some clear problems, once again, the problems related to digitization and the processing of the data came once over again as a nightmare. And on the other hand, it is clear that not all of the important medical biological words are located or are part of my list. But I think that at least I got a sort of survey of the main important terms. So there you have like a sort of two visualization of the main, well, some of the main words using the both parameters. On one hand, frequency, on the other hand, the TF-IDF score, which share common words sometimes, but other cases, it was expected, don't. And what I'm doing right now, and that's the, how much time do I have? I'm fine. So what I'm doing right now is training, or at least experimenting with GPT 3.5 Turbo in order to identify the different contexts in which those terms have been used across all the texts. So it has been hard, and it is still hard, but I'm trying to teach him how being able to, I mean, of course, feeding them with some previous answers in order to train him and find the model, fine-tuning the model. So I'm trying to give him the ability of being able of identify some context in which cases the terms have been using with a metaphorical meaning, in which case they have been using with a biological medical meaning, in which cases they have been used with a descriptive meaning or literary meaning, etc. And what I'm just showing you now as a final tune is basically the two main good results I'm getting right now, because of course I'm getting a lot of bad results too. And the first one is related to the centrality of sickness in female Imaginaries. So I have, now you're seeing like a sort of basic examples of the results I'm getting. And on the second hand, I'm getting good results when it comes to the portrayal of women's bodies, which is absolutely interesting. And it sort of shed light into new meanings and new representation that women had at that time across the magazine. Do I have time, like, for a final? Okay. So what I wanted to say as a form of conclusion is that while the topic modeling results confirm the centrality of constrained roles in debates centered on women illustrated in topic 1, I'm just going back right now of the topic modeling part. Other topics show a more complex and less rigid representation, specifically associated with, on one hand, that was something I didn't talk about, I haven't the time, but that was related to cultural Andalusian representation of women. And on the other hand, we are able to see as well as how demonization of women adopted the form of pathologization at the very end of the 19th century, mirroring the social fear of gender and social transformation spread across the conservative and majority sector of Spanish society. On the other hand, the large language model exploration of semantic context delved into that pathologization expressions, showing female subjects both as source of illness, victims, and disease transmitters. This ultimately reaffirms the anguish as well as the unknown associated with women's mind and bodies, an obsession that even did not allow for more space for other traditional female roles, such as the mother or the wife as caretaker, which was something I was expecting, and I got it. So as a final note, women's eroticization turned out to be another dominant theme connected to women's body, ultimately showing more diverse and liberal connotation that surpass fixed gender norms. Thank you.